The humiliation. The crystal chandeliers cast an ethereal glow across the Grand Metropolitan Hotel's ballroom, where the city's most influential figures gathered for the annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala. Marcus Chen adjusted his black bow tie and smoothed down his vest, carrying a silver tray laden with champagne flutes through the sea of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. At 28, Marcus moved with practiced precision between the tables, his dark eyes focused on his task. The irony wasn't lost on him. Just 2 years ago, he would have been among the guests, writing generous checks and networking with the city's elite. Now, he was invisible to them, just another face in the service staff. The evening progressed smoothly until Marcus spotted a familiar silhouette near the auction display. Victoria Sterling stood radiant in an emerald silk gown, her auburn hair swept into an elegant updo, diamond earrings catching the light as she laughed at something her companion said. Beside her, James Rothwell, heir to the Rothwell real estate empire, gestured animatedly with his champagne glass. Marcus felt his stomach clench. He hadn't seen Victoria since their engagement ended 18 months ago, when his world had crumbled. He tried to navigate around their section, but fate had other plans. "Excuse me, waiter." Victoria's voice cut through the ambient chatter. Marcus froze, recognizing the deliberately sweet tone she used when she wanted to be particularly cutting. "Could we get some fresh champagne over here?" Their eyes met, and Marcus watched Victoria's expression shift from casual dismissal to delighted recognition. A cruel smile played at her lips as she realized exactly who was serving her. "Well, well," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Marcus Chen, I hardly recognized you in that uniform." James looked confused for a moment before understanding dawned on his face. "Wait, isn't this your ex-fiancé, the one who lost everything?" "Yes," Victoria finished, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "How the mighty have fallen from in corner office to this." She gestured dismissively at his server's uniform. Marcus kept his expression neutral, though his knuckles whitened as he gripped the tray. "Good evening, Victoria." "James." His voice remained steady, professional. "Oh, don't be so formal," Victoria laughed, a sound that drew curious glances from other guests. "We're practically family, aren't we? Or we were, until you proved you weren't quite the man I thought you were." James chuckled, emboldened by his girlfriend's performance. "I have to say, the service industry suits you better than finance ever did. At least now you're being honest about your station in life." The words hit their mark, but Marcus simply nodded and began to move away. However, Victoria wasn't finished with her entertainment. "Wait," she called out, raising her voice enough to ensure a small crowd would gather. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet someone special. This is Marcus Chen, my former fiancé. He used to pretend he belonged in our world, but as you can see, he's found his true calling." Marcus felt the weight of dozens of eyes upon him, some curious, others pitying, a few clearly enjoying the spectacle. His face burned with humiliation, but he forced himself to remain dignified. He had learned through bitter experience that sometimes survival meant swallowing one's pride. What none of them knew was that this evening would reveal truths that would shatter their assumptions about power, worth, and who really controlled the strings in their glittering world. The fall from Grace Marcus Chen hadn't always worn a server's uniform. 2 years earlier, he had been one of the youngest senior analysts at Sterling and Associates, ironically, Victoria's father's investment firm. He'd worked 16-hour days, building portfolios worth millions, earning the respect of colleagues and clients alike. His corner office overlooked the harbor, and his future seemed limitless. The trouble began when Marcus discovered irregularities in several high-profile accounts. His investigation revealed that senior partners were embezzling funds from client portfolios, covering their tracks with sophisticated accounting manipulations. Marcus faced an impossible choice. Stay silent and be complicit, or expose the corruption and face the consequences. He chose integrity. Rebecca Torres, his former colleague and closest friend at the firm, had warned him. "Marcus, you don't understand how deep this goes. Victoria's father isn't just involved, he's orchestrating it. If you blow the whistle, they'll destroy you." But Marcus couldn't live with himself, knowing innocent investors were being robbed. He gathered evidence and presented it to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Within weeks, his life unraveled. The firm's lawyers painted him as a disgruntled employee seeking attention. They produced fabricated evidence suggesting Marcus had been the one stealing funds. His professional reputation was obliterated overnight. Every door in the financial sector slammed shut. Victoria, who had initially claimed to believe in his innocence, abandoned him when the social pressure became too intense. "I can't be with someone who's become a laughingstock," she had said coldly, returning his grandmother's engagement ring. "My family has a reputation to maintain." His father, David Chen, had been his only constant support. A humble restaurant owner who had immigrated from Taiwan, David never understood high finance, but understood his son's character. When Marcus lost his apartment and car, David welcomed him home without judgment. "Success isn't about how high you climb," his father had said in his accented English, "but how you stand when you fall." David's sudden heart attack 6 months ago had left Marcus truly alone. The medical bills consumed what little savings remained. Taking the serving job at the Grand Metropolitan wasn't just about survival. It was about maintaining some connection to the world that had rejected him while he planned his next move. Rebecca Torres had been the only colleague brave enough to maintain contact. She'd helped him secure the hotel position through her new job at a hospitality management company. "It's temporary," she'd assured him. "I'm still gathering evidence to clear your name." Marcus had learned to find dignity in honest work, but facing Victoria and James tonight reopened wounds he'd thought were healing. As he continued serving, he noticed more former acquaintances recognizing him. Whispers followed in his wake, accompanied by pointing fingers and barely concealed laughter. The dining room supervisor, Miguel Santos, approached him during a brief break. "You okay, Hermano? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something like that," Marcus replied, straightening his shoulders. He thought of his father's words about standing when you fall. Tonight was testing that philosophy to its limits. What Marcus didn't know was that someone in the ballroom had been watching the entire humiliating display with growing anger, someone whose connection to him ran deeper than anyone suspected, and whose power far exceeded that of Victoria Sterling or James Rothwell. The revelation. The ballroom fell into complete silence as Catherine Blackstone approached the group. Her presence commanded immediate attention, not through ostentation, but through an unmistakable aura of authority that made even the most powerful guests step aside. Victoria's triumphant smile faltered slightly, though she couldn't quite understand why. "Mrs. Blackstone," Dr. Fleming said, her relief evident as she moved toward the older woman. "Thank you again for making tonight possible. Your foundation's contribution will transform our pediatric wing." Catherine nodded graciously, but kept her eyes fixed on Victoria and James. "The pleasure is mine, Dr. Fleming. Though I must say, I'm finding the evening's entertainment rather illuminating." James straightened his shoulders, recognizing an opportunity to impress someone clearly important. "Mrs. Blackstone, I'm James Rothwell. My family's quite involved in city development projects. Perhaps we could discuss—" "I know exactly who you are, Mr. Rothwell," Catherine interrupted smoothly. "Your family's reputation precedes you, as does yours, Miss Sterling." Victoria preened at what she assumed was recognition of her social status. "How wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Blackstone. I don't believe we've been introduced, though I'm sure we move in similar circles." A ghost of a smile played at Catherine's lips. Oh, we've never met formally, but I've been watching your performance tonight with great interest, particularly your treatment of the service staff." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Something in Catherine's tone suggested this wasn't heading in the direction Victoria expected. "Well," Victoria laughed nervously, "we were just having a bit of fun with an old friend. Marcus and I have such history." "Yes, I'm aware of your history," Catherine said, her voice growing colder. "I'm aware of many things, Miss Sterling, including your father's recent legal troubles." Victoria's face went pale. Her father's embezzlement case had been kept quiet, settled out of court with sealed records. How could this woman know about it? Catherine turned to Marcus, who had been standing frozen throughout the exchange. "Marcus Chen," she said warmly, her entire demeanor transforming. "I've been hoping we'd have a chance to speak this evening." Marcus looked confused. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't believe we've met." "No, but I knew your father very well. David Chen was a remarkable man." The mention of his father's name hit Marcus like a physical blow. He stared at Catherine, searching for some explanation. Catherine continued, her voice filled with genuine affection. "David saved my life once, 30 years ago. I was a young graduate student, working nights at a diner to pay for school. Some men were harassing me after closing time, and your father, who was delivering supplies to the restaurant, stepped in. He didn't know me, had no reason to get involved, but he couldn't stand by and watch someone be hurt." She paused, letting the significance of her words settle over the crowd. "That intervention changed everything for me. David and I became friends, and when I started my first business, he was my first investor. Not with money. He had little of that, but with wisdom, encouragement, and an unshakable belief in doing what's right." Marcus felt tears welling in his eyes. His father had never mentioned any of this. "Over the years, I built several companies, eventually founding Blackstone Industries. Every success I achieved, I owed partly to your father's early guidance and example." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Catherine's voice hardened as she turned back to Victoria and James. "So, imagine my interest when I learned that David's son, a man who inherited his father's integrity, was being persecuted for exposing the very corruption that my investigators had been tracking for months." Victoria's face had gone from pale to ashen. I don't understand." "Oh, I think you understand perfectly," Catherine replied. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Part 5. Justice served. Catherine Blackstone's revelation rippled through the ballroom like an earthquake. The guests who had moments ago been enjoying Marcus's humiliation now realized they had been witnessing something far more significant and dangerous to their own positions. "Mrs. Blackstone," Victoria stammered, "there's been some misunderstanding. My father's case was covered up by expensive lawyers and sealed court records," Catherine finished. "Yes, I'm quite familiar with how your family operates, Miss Sterling. What you don't realize is that Blackstone Industries owns a controlling interest in Sterling and Associates as of 3 months ago." The blood drained from Victoria's face completely. James took an unconscious step backward, suddenly understanding the magnitude of their situation. Catherine continued, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "My forensic accountants have been working closely with federal investigators. The evidence Marcus originally provided was not only accurate, it was incomplete. The corruption goes much deeper than even he realized."